Hello and welcome to the Intentional Soul, the home for the highly functioning spiritual types out in the world. It is here that we look at the world and ourselves through the lens of higher consciousness, connecting deeply to who and what we really are. Now, my name is Tom Ross, spiritual teacher, healer, spiritual nonconformist, and I am your host for these conversations. On the Intentional Soul, we hear not only from me, but from people who are living intentionally, openly, and authentically in their world. We'll hear their stories of personal transformation while sharing best practices and tactics to help you get the most out of this game called life. Now, nothing is off limits as we seek to expand ourselves and our awareness and live, ultimately, our most authentic lives. Let's dive in. All right, with us today, gentlemen, that I'm very excited to have, my dear friend, Cuthberto Ramos. Cuthberto he's a reformed loan officer. He is a real estate investor, a financier, no stranger to change, to personal transformation, both in business and elsewhere. So grateful to have you here with us today, buddy. Thank you for being a part of the Intentional Soul.
Well, thank you for having me, brother. I am looking forward to this and been excited since the moment you started the podcast. So I'm looking forward to this.
One of the most soulful individuals that I've ever met in my entire life. Would you mind telling us a little bit, Cuthberto? Tell us about your background, about yourself, like what lands you in this chair right now. What's the short version of a long story?
Short version of a long story was, like a lot of people who were raised inside of an entrepreneurial family as a kid, right? You get raised in their aunts, uncles, cousins. Everybody's kind of taking the same. I learned so much from them on their failures as well. And I knew right away, simply because of an event that happened years ago, that real estate was going to be like where I was going to go. Once I got into real estate, like all of us, we needed to find our place, and financing and being a loan officer was where it started. But it not only did it start my journey into wealth creation or whatever it was, my transformational journey began as well. And, by making the story short, the evolution of everything that you know me to be, brother, has always been because of there's always been something additional to it, which is where you and me connect at the soul level which is like, it's never been separate from that. But my journey into entrepreneurial is as long as my journey into this development. And like you mentioned earlier, I'm known for my transformational changes, and they happen simply because as I level up, as I evolve, as I go through breakdowns and the breakthroughs come, I have the willingness to take myself on and change at levels that I've gotten to the point where I've changed at levels that people would think are just habitual or unchangeable or cultural, ingrained. So I don't know if that's the short version, but there is a great journey from, like you said, loan officer to real estate investor to really finding my own as a financier, and now in this family office type of environment where I manage myself and my closest family, my closest friends and their families and wealth. So that's how I got here.
That's amazing. And just in that little short, there's a lot of different questions that I have and places that we can like launch from. But just to give people a frame of reference for what you're talking about, you and I were both veterans of the mortgage industry, didn't know each other. You were in Cali, I was in Arizona a million years ago.
Yeah.
You had a stepping off point at some point after, around the collapse, and you moved into real estate investing, and you amassed a considerable amount of real estate investments, and had been doing a considerable amount of capital raising for projects, which, that's what when we say financier, I'm speaking to the audience right now. When we say financier, there's an opportunity that exists, and someone needs to create the money to be able to fulfill the opportunity. And you became, through the course of your real estate practice, this incredible financier, because you produced results for people over and over and over again. Your risk tolerance for anybody that knows you is like non-existent. It's like
no
some
way.
people operate here. You're like, I don't have it.
No way.
And then now it's almost exclusively when you talk about this move into family office or whatever, you're talking about people that you are working with that deal with generational wealth.
Yeah.
And the kind of big number that it almost sounds like lottery type of stuff. So I'm giving some context because like that's the world in which you live, in which you operate, in which you capital raise for that you're a part of, and that is over here. And it's in the place that you started from was way back over here.
Way back
there's a lot of story in between. So let's start. Go for it.
No, I go. Yeah. There's a lot of story. Yeah. Go ahead.
So let's. I'd love to start with the very beginning here, real quick, which was you said that somehow you always knew like real estate was going to be a thing. It was part of an entrepreneurial family. What was that little nugget that you seemingly threw away in the intro?
Well, it was okay. So it's like I said, I grew up in a very prosperous time of entrepreneurials, but my family was more successful due to just a blind work habit, no financial education, right? It was the grit really that was given to us as hard work, right? So, and then the savings and loan crash happened in 89, 90, 91, 92, 93. And it felt like it just wiped out my entire family. And I'm not just talking about my parents. I'm talking about as close knit as we were in a community, right? We got completely wiped out, except one family. And that was a family of real estate investors. And I just remember because of the duality of experiencing something, experiencing the hurt of the loss, and then recognizing what didn't affect it. And it was that. And luckily I was able to go work with these uncles under them and find out what they were doing. And kudos to them, for taking me on as their gopher. Right. But while I was in that process, I needed to eat, right? Because I was basically just a gopher. It's not like I was being welfared by anybody. It was just like, and in there, I try to be into in the sales of real estate, but it never translated. And when my second kid was born, I remember I committed to making a change to being a loan officer. And boy, did I thrive under that. And this is before even subprime came. I was already a loan officer when all we had was FHA, really. I mean, even conventional felt like it was out of my reach, right? It was more FHA. And then I was already at full swing during the subprime. I was in the, I consider myself to be one of the people who were like very much involved in the entire subprime thing. Like I wasn't just an outsider. And I think you and me had conversations about what that looked like, about what it was we were doing, how we were doing it. And then I lost it all. Like I lost. So it wasn't just getting into real estate like I thought as a youth. Oh, I won't lose if I go into real estate. And then I go into real estate and become a full-fledged member of the community, full-timer, cutting edge, and I still lost. Well, what was it? Well, then it was the financial education side of it. And then I went on a journey, right? And it wasn't just learning, it was doing, right? We amassed from 2009 to probably a year ago before the situation happened with my business partner, me and him out of the complete crash, bro, out of the dust of the crash, the rubble. I'm talking about the dust cloud from rubble.
Yep.
Out of that, without a dime in our pocket, but this know-how, both my business partner, Manny, and I just went on and we accumulated about $100 million worth of real estate acquisitions and holdings. We have since sold so much of it and transitioned into greater projects, but it was this constant question that I was on. It wasn't just I was living in this randomness. It was this constant, And then even after I did that, somewhere in the middle, like 15, 16 or 17, I also evolved into from the real estate investor and that old program of just grit, going out and just grinding it out, to a higher conscious, right? And it's no coincidence that you and me found ourselves in the community of Matthew Ferry. That's where we met, yep. Right? Which is somebody who I had already been following like really heavy years, but it wasn't until I decided that there was another level to it. It wasn't just being a grinded out real estate investor professional. It was almost like the role of the financier had to come at a price of changing who I was and who I show up as. And it, at that same second that I was making that change is when I met you. So it was, I guess what I'm trying to lay out, it might have looked natural, but it was a sequence from a constant question. And yes, and it comes from that low risk tolerance that I have. You know, I'm not a gambler, for instance, but it was, I guess I'd love for the audience to understand that even meeting you, who's been you've been a big influence in my life, even meeting you, right, became like, it was when I was ready to be that, in which I'm stepping into now. And each and every time I had to make that change, like, I recognized the opportunity that the new version of me, the upgrade, had to come in. And too many of my peers and my friends just stayed because they chose not to go through the transmutation of it. And I don't know if I'm just kind of a loony and why I take it on, but I did it, and here I am.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's the flexibility that you had to deploy, maybe the courage that you had to deploy. So you're nothing's broken. Everything's moving like crazy. And this is like in the mid 2010s. And yet there's some shift that you want to make that you just feel like is the right move. Like describe the reason why you would have decided to elevate yourself and move into something different, i.e. more of the financier standpoint, and start doing something different than real estate. What was that? And then talk about the reinvention process. Sure. What did you how did you navigate those waters to be known for something?
That's right.
And be known exquisitely for something and then do something different is not just, it's not the normal thing that people do. So would you mind?
No. Yeah. Well, first off, I would say the first half of this 20 plus year journey, the first half felt a lot more instinctual. And I only say it because of this, right? Because of this, like, for instance, many aspects of us, like a serial entrepreneur is the type that is constantly starting a new business and never finishes, all right? So I'm not saying that was what it was with me. I was more of a self-improvement hardcore, without trying to say the word junkie, but believe me, it's almost like it almost came. And
what did that look like for you? What did a self-improvement junkie look like?
It was this constant need to improve. Okay. However, so Matthew had given me an old affirmation for myself, right, to keep my ass at bay, right, which is just because I want to get better doesn't mean that what I have now is bad. So that relieved a lot of the unconscious dissatisfaction. I was very satisfied. I was satisfied with the status. I was satisfied with the result, but there was an unconscious dissatisfaction that came from constantly wanting to grow. I say that because that was a very much a first half of my career. That's why I called it instinctual without really knowing the best word to phrase it, because it was unconscious.
Yeah.
It was when I became conscious and I enjoyed the run. What I mean by the run is I enjoyed the process. And then when the waves, like a surfer, they stopped coming, I learned that cycle came to an end. So I was very good at identifying through not just feeling, through not just intuition, through obvious feedback from the world, that I was going into full effect, and I was completing cycles. And as cycles ended, cycles start. And I did that for a while. And today I am doing things like that at a more conscious level, a more intentional level. And you know this because like the breakdowns are just so much shorter than they were. And I'm still doing it, right? It's this non-attachment to the identity and the applause and the recognition of what I had accomplished, and know that even though I was that, that there was greater coming through in an inspirational sense. So, I don't want to word salad this as much as possible, but I think I can see it, right? I can see how it was instinctual, meaning it was very unconscious, and there was a lot of erroneous aspects to it. That's why I brought up the entrepreneurial side of it. And then there was one where I was paying attention to the content and the feedback of life to kind of give me indicators of starting and ending cycles to now, right? Just kind of being an expression of that, what's coming through me, that inspiration that's coming through me. And when I'm in that flow, bro, when I'm in that flow of that inspiration, like, dude, even the breakdowns feel natural.
Yeah.
And the breakthroughs are like grabbing a bull by the horns, bro. And it goes at a rush. And the problem is, and here's the problem, the world doesn't know yet you're even doing it because you still look the same.
Right.
Your hair didn't turn green, your skin, to the world, it's the same. But to you, tomorrow, you're just a different dude. Right. Mm-hmm. And then once I know that I'm the different dude, then the world starts catching up. And that's where I get the positive feedback on that.
Well, and that's, it's funny you mentioned that because in my own process, what I've done in my own world with the dissolution of my old business and everything looks confounding to almost everyone else. Like, why would I possibly do that? And it is because this thing where it's like you stop being a thing over here and you're becoming the different version of yourself. And then by the time the change gets made or in the physical world, you've already been that for a while. So it's like a natural thing for you.
That's right.
However, to everybody else, it's like the first time that they haven't been updated along the.
They have not been updated, bro. It's like Microsoft and Apple updating, like, and you haven't updated your computer for like a year. You're like, oh shit. That's how my wife feels. Imagine. Hey, my wife's like, whoa, wait a minute, right? Like, and it's cool, dude. It's cool.
For those of us who have a predisposition to understand more about ourselves and to seek higher degrees of self-awareness and to express more purely like whatever we are at a soul level, it has to be maddening to be married to that. And God bless my wife and yours. But you said something really interesting I want to kind of go back to here. That was almost talking about the mechanism of making this change. So, and I want to parse it a little bit for listeners because I can feel everything and understand everything, but I want to make sure that they're getting it as well.
Sure, 100%.
So what I heard is the instinctual part of your first of the first half of your career was basically just you running a little bit more by instinct on autopilot before you describe it as you being more conscious or more aware. I want to put a pin in that real quick. And I want to come back to it and talk about like, what was that process for you? But when that thing happened, your ability to move into something else, despite the success that you had in the thing that you were doing, you said something very interesting. And it was that you didn't have like an attachment to the praise and the adulation or the results or whatever. You said something slightly different, but like it was the non-attachment to the identity and essentially the praise of whatever you had been or are in the world from other people. That non-attachment allowed you to be able to feel and just like what's the most, am I hallucinating correctly when I'm saying like, it's kind of like you were feeling around for what's the most authentic expression of me.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say that because I was going to say it was a feeling, but you nailed it. So I want to say it like this. It's almost like that expression of an intuitive nudge, right? Now, there was, again, in the earlier parts when I didn't do this properly through that instinctual side, there was a lot of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
So give a physical example of that just for people. Make something up.
Okay, like throwing a baby out with the bathwater is like you gave up too many of the benefits. You exited that identity a little bit too early because you didn't like 2 or 3 things from it.
This doesn't feel good, so screw it.
So fuck it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But
that's right. We fly the F-bomb flag.
Yeah. So it's like, forget it. So that was a very premature way of doing it, right? Because I was resisting that, and then as I go to the next experience, I realized the shit just kept coming along with me. It wasn't until I got balanced with that which I was resisting that I was able to make a cleaner transition. So this intuitive nudge, going back to this intuitive nudge, right? So I do want to say the following. No, I am as a person who does a lot of this work, I do write goals, I do write intentions, but I started to become even more intentional with how I came up with this, right? So really back in 2009, early 2009, I did this crazy meditation. And I had read Matthew's book, but I also had read a couple of other books, and I was like, like some of these main manifesting people, like Waddles, you name it, Hill, all of these authors, they always had like play this game kind of thing. So I came out and I invented my own little game in which in 30 days, like $1 would double, right? Like $1 to the 2 double, or like and eventually it grew, right? But what I needed to do every day was mentally spend it. Like if today I needed to mentally spend $1 million, I needed to see what it is that I would be doing, like what I would be spending on. Now, this is not a game I played all the time, and there's a reason why I'm explaining this. Because I was able to kind of internalize the road map with a game like this. This wasn't the only games that I did through visualization, meditation, and all these things, but I'm trying to kind of give like a movie creating a character arc. I'm trying to create a reason on how this intuitive nudge was not just a feeling, but it was a feeling with an awareness, because I had internalized it, because I didn't just write it down on a piece of paper. I did the personal practice of maybe not having $1 in my account, but in this imaginary account, I had $500 million that I, with gusto, went to go look for how to spend. Right. And so it felt like all it was really practice, the way a sports team has their walkthrough practices.
Yep.
So when I would release it and I would go on to my day, elements of the opportunity for me to do exactly that would appear, and that's when the nudge would identify. And then,
so I want to put pause just for a fast second. So you essentially, what you're describing is you essentially primed yourself for the instinct to show itself towards the thing that you were imagining and living, right? Like I'm visualizing, it's part of me. I know that this is a thing. And so when I'm out in the world, I'm compelled and I'm feeling nudged towards those things that are in alignment with that ultimate vision.
100%. It was almost like I primed myself to get the beans for the beanstalk. Yeah. Like I wasn't just looking for the beanstalk. I was like, when the seeds showed up, I knew it.
Like, I know those. I'm going to plant that.
Yeah, I know what it does because I already did it. So I now that is just, there's a lot.
That's amazing, by the way. That's an incredible mental, like mental framework. That's most people, if it's like, I'm thinking and I'm manifesting this or that or whatever, and then they're essentially looking for that thing or that evidence, that thing. That's versus being that connected to this massive vision and then finding all the beans along the way is an incredible tool. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
And I just have the final like bow on top of it, right? Like I read this crazy book. I don't even nearly need to say it, but one of the most fascinating things I read about that was this idea that like when you're fully committed, 100% committed, something powerful happens, but it also discounts that if you're 99% committed, it's just as good as zero, right? But I'm not really going to break into that. But one of the powerful things that says it happens at a soul level, at a conscious level, at an awareness level, is that when you are 100% committed to something, all of the objections that could possibly come up, they come up instantly, like in front of you instantly. That's the difference between knowing. And so I kind of had that little program running that when I'm 100%, everything shows up. So what would happen when this intuitive nudge of what these beanstalks these beans that I was looking for would show up, and I knew that I was fully committed to doing that? It told me instantly in an instinctual moment, like an intuitive moment, this is the price you have to pay in order to do. And many a times it was, you must cease to be who you currently are. Now, it didn't always. Sometimes it just said you had to modify the fact that you're an asshole sometimes, dude. Like, that's all it was. So that wasn't an expensive, but when
and not too confronting. Hey, stop being an asshole. It's not terribly confronting.
You know what? Wake up at 5 today. How's that? Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
But then every 7 or 8 years, man, the one that would change my life, the price to pay, the price to pay, the toll, right, showed up. And it's like, St. Peter at the gate saying, bro, in order for you to come this way, right, this needs to stay. Will you do it? And that's what I meant about my buddy saying, you know what, Guru, I didn't bring my passport. I'm good. I'm a chill. And I'm like, nah, man, like I'm moving on because I've seen this and I'm going to do this. And like I said, this is not always, but it was like, because come on, dude, like how could I just unconsciously just want to take on a shift of identity? There had to be so much power behind it.
Right.
And that's it, bro.
That's amazing. I've got God, dude, we could go for
we can go. You and me can go for hours, bro. I mean,
yeah. So,
but hold on. For people who know, we vacation together.
Yeah, we hung out. Yeah, we hung out in Mammoth recently. We hung out in the DDR recently.
So we a part of Vallarta. So we've that
was sweaty.
Believe me, fellas, this is a snack conversation that me and Tom are having. When I mean snack, this isn't dinner. This is just, hey, you have peanuts, you have some fruit, give it to me. Hey, so what's up? Like, this is what me and you sound like for those who are listening.
We trade sneezes, and it takes about an hour and a half.
Just to break it.
So we're gonna definitely do this again. I want to do a couple rapid fire questions.
Let's do it
fast. Because any other question I ask that I really want to ask is going to be another 45 minutes. So,
yeah, I know, bro. I got you, brother. I got you. I feel you.
How is doing what you're doing right now? Like what you're doing right now? Is it what you had visioned and what you had imagined, or is it totally different in your life?
It's awesome to say that it's both. It's what you envisioned, but then you also realize that it's just different because you weren't aware of what this experience would be like. It's what you envisioned because it was almost like this was the practical thing I saw myself doing. Versus now that I'm here, what's different is the meaning. Like, fuck, now that I'm doing this other part that I thought mattered didn't matter.
Yeah.
This other things that I was doing, they don't matter. That's where the difference in feeling is. It was exactly what I wanted, but it wasn't for the at the moment survival need for that goal to do. It was similar to the person who probably went their entire life taking care of every penny and not wanting to give a budge on anything, become a multimillionaire, get to the level that they want, and then dedicate their life to philanthropy, which is the complete opposite of what they did. It was because the meaning changed, the significance changed. And because there's I'm just going to say this scene, right? There was this moment on the Avengers where oh my God, what's the big dude's name who snapped his finger?
Thanos.
Thanos. He just, once he accomplished it, he was just in his little shack, a little cabin, and just sat down and had peace. That's guaranteed to happen when you accomplish it. Like, there isn't this radical celebration. There's just the moment, right? But then there's a whole slew of beautiful inspiration and change in perspective and new inspirations to do other things that are in line with that piece. So that's kind of what I'm kind of saying. Look,
what you're arguing that Thanos was enlightened, which I
listen, bro. Don't make me start this conversation. I'm probably pro Thanos in the conversation here, right? Like, I think
see the enlightenment in Thanos that isn't yourself.
100%.
I would argue that many people, maybe even most people, who, when they accomplish the thing that they thought they were going to accomplish, don't necessarily have that piece, right? You, my friend, are an anomaly, but that's because, like what you're describing earlier, which is like you are so connected to the source and the expression that's just kind of like that. You're like, what is coming through me? What am I inspired to kind of create? That as it comes, you're experiencing the peace, you're experiencing excitement, and then when it finishes, you're still experiencing excitement and peace. And that's not everybody, but we want it for everybody, obviously.
Well, it's hilarious because you taught me something that one day that I repeated it to you, you're like, holy moly, that's pretty good. I should write that down. I'm like, you taught me this. And it was something in that effect, right? Which is learning to architect. I learned to architect my life from the inside out.
Right.
Instead of architecting my life. Now, for people saying this is copyright at the bottom, Thomas Ross, like he said this, right? And then when I told it to him, he was like, wow, that was pretty good. Like, if you think about it, what I've
taken my own advice a long time ago.
I architected my life from the inside by discerning what's coming through me.
Yeah.
So what was coming through me, right? So this game that I played allowed me to listen to what I was actually discerning. What's coming through me was, so the game, this little game of playing that I told you was a game of discernment. Okay, today I have $1 million. What's coming through me is what choosing what I would want to buy. So since it's coming through me and I'm architecting it from the inside, it was only a matter of time before the outside did it. And it said, all right, little bitch, are you ready to pay the piper?
Right.
Like, that's really what it was. Okay, it came. Now what? Right. So this was, again, I was doing it years before you said it to me. But when you said it to me, you basically described my process.
Yeah.
It's it's architecting, basically having it all internally first based on what's coming through, and not architecting my life based on the feedback of the world, because that's not what's coming through. That's probably what came through.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're in line with. So just wanted to mention that.
You're pointing to when you talk about like what's coming through, the quality, like how do I figure that out? And it comes from a way it comes, not the only way, but way it comes. The predictable, duplicatable way it comes is when you have a quiet mind, when you know that all is well, when you live more often in that space of all is well, then the quiet that you experience, like there's this tiny voice that goes on, and then that's like the inspiration.
Yeah.
All the noise that you pointed to when you circled your arm around your head, the outside world, and the normal mind chatter that exists, very, very hard to hear what's coming through. And so it is the guaranteed way to have extraordinary satisfaction in the whatever it is that you're seeking, is like when it's an expression of you, as opposed to when you're paying attention to the voices outside and you're trying to find happiness through something external. So let me ask you another fast question. Fast question.
Yeah. Fast question, buddy. Yeah. Good luck.
Do you experience courage any longer?
Yeah.
Like where you found that you have to be courageous, or is it simply are things that people would perceive as courageous just part of doing business because of how tuned in you are right now?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I think courage really is the way I experience it, right? Was I courageous against my fears? Was I courageous against my worrisome, like whatever it was, right? So right now, my courage is manifesting in my legitimate intent, and you heard me say this intention, which I want the world to think that I'm lucky. Remember, I mentioned that I want the world to say I'm lucky. Why? Because there's something powerful around that, and I'm going to describe it. And hopefully, this is the short answer to your question, right? So, like many people, I cared about what people thought about me, and then I consciously said I really didn't care, and I thought to the point where I thought I really didn't care, but subconsciously, my attention was still focused on what people thought about me. I knew it because the results told me that I was still, in some form or another, attached to what people thought about me.
What does that mean? Well, hold on. Like, not that I'm trying to have the longer version of the answer, but like, that's too good. What about the results or the feedback you were getting from the environment told you that you were still attached?
Well, because I was still like I can still tell, like there was still like little things peeping its head out, that there was a hidden motive to care about what people think. So it was my awareness and my intuition that it was still a hidden motive. Even
like you can feel there's something here that's I'm caring about something that is indicating that I'm it's still attached.
It wasn't conscious people pleasing, but there was an unconsciousness. So when I declared that I wanted to be lucky, that I want people to think that I'm lucky, it was like the most, for me, it was the most suspended feeling of releasing the need. Meaning, because there's two things that happen if people think I'm lucky. One, they're going to discount all the hard work that I've done. They're just going to see what I've accomplished in the moment. Right. And then there's also, it also allows me to be very neutral, because there's going to be people who are going to be like, hey, I'm pretty proud of that's pretty awesome of what you accomplished. So there's a reason behind, to answer the question about the courage. By me releasing the need, to releasing that attention and suspending it, and now putting the attention on the abundance that so I basically, and you would understand this, and hopefully this podcast has the same ilk of people who are just as insane as you and me, who understand that what I did was I removed this unconscious attention from something that was degrading, and I put it for something that was thriving. Mm-hmm. It didn't, like, my brain still wants a sandwich tomorrow. It wasn't thinking about it. This is on an unconscious level. So what I started to focus on, I realized that one thing had to happen. Remember, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Yep. Right. So you and I are nerds at what we prepare at, like the inner faculties that we work on to prepare, and who we are and who we show up as in the world is what brings us the opportunities. Right. So we're prepared. Opportunities show up. Where does courage live in my world? My willingness to take on the opportunity. Yeah. That's where courage now lives. It used to live on a heavy survival. For those who don't know, or maybe can't see me, I'm a 6'1", 250, muscular, big bearded, tattooed, brown Mexican dude. Like, I am not your prototypical, like, whatever it is you said that I am now. Like, I don't look the type. So just based on my general background, courage had a whole different meaning, right? Yeah. Today, because I'm committed because I'm committed to abundance, which automatically translates that I have released the need for people to think what it is they think about me. But because I am committed to constantly taking on the opportunities that do come across my table, my inner table, like the way I mentioned the piper that I have to pay. Do I have the courage to do it? And it fully lives there intact. Hopefully I didn't lose people with the nonsense that I just rambled, but it is very important where I recognize courage lives. And I needed to give you the backstory of that so you can kind of grasp it. No, I think you described it beautifully. I'm gonna hit a couple of highlighted points here real quick. So the thing about
having a specific intention to be lucky is what lucky really is to the outside is anonymity, because you actually have to, which is what you pointed to. It's the release of the attachment of people like thinking that you're anything, right? Like that right. Look how good he is at this. Look how good he is at that. No, because if that mother effer is lucky, then he's just lucky. He doesn't even know. Right. So it takes you into this, like, if you know, kind of situation. But from the outside world, they can just think that I'm lucky, right. And so that's the, and I think that, and when you say willingness is where your courage shows up, I hear two things. So number one, there's a courage in letting go of what people think of you, because, let's be honest, everything that we've created in our lives is a result of what people think of us, right? Like those are the results that we kind of create. So there is a courage in transforming that, where your, like you said, your intention was, into just the intention on focused on the outcome and I'm lucky. The second spot is, it seems that your willingness leads you into wild fits of transformation from one thing to the other. And then there's just courage in being willing to go into whatever happens to be coming through next. And so, no, I think you freaking nailed it, man. And thank you. Cool, last question here.
Let's do it.
And then we'll leave the other 50 for 10 more casts.
The next one. Yeah. Put me in as a correspondent. That way I'm constantly in.
Ramos on the street.
Yeah. Ramos on the street. What do you got on this?
Dude, we can totally do that. We will 100% do
100% do that. Heck yeah.
A 2-minute Ramos on the street, 20 minutes guaranteed every time.
Yeah, that's right.
What's the so if you're going to share something with someone who's listening, who kind of like is in a spot where they want to take a risk, maybe it's a self-expression, being more of who they are, or maybe it's something that's more of like a tactical thing, within the scope of work, and they're in that kind of that fear space. Like, what words do you have for somebody to give themselves permission to be able to step out and be more of who they are, or take risks that you seem to take as just part of life?
Okay. Well, besides listening to this podcast and really following it, because I think the first thing is that it's this, what we're describing, this, what we talk about, is not only something that you and me are passionate about, but is because we can see the direct result. We can relate the abundance that we have in our life to the practice. So I wanted to make sure that's the first thing I want people to understand, that this soul spiritual work is directly related. So it's not exclusive the way I think a lot of the world will try to make you do. So that's one. But here's what it is. Here's what it is. Because I've done it so much, I can kind of give a body of work, like a sample size, to say the following. So our skill sets, and when we're going to jump out, or we're going to jump and be courageous to do something, right? A lot of us are stopped by what we need to know in order to do something, meaning our skill sets, or the way Matthew taught me is this ability to constantly be tried at it, right? This, like, what we have, the kind of knowledge that we have. But this is what I'm going to tell you. You don't need to know it all. Now, this is not this how that he talks. No, you don't need to know the skills, have the skills of all of them, because this happens, and I will love feedback for anybody who's ever had this. When you jump into this new identity that you're jumping into, something magical happens. Skills that you didn't know you had sprout. Knowledge that you didn't know you had sprout out of nowhere. You will have you will sound like an expert to somebody, not because you have the gift of gab, because you tapped into this other type of potential mentally, right? Like you're going to say stuff like to yourself, holy shit, I didn't even know that I knew that. Hence what Tom said when I told him what he told me. And he's like, really? I said that? And it wasn't because he was channeling necessarily. It was because who he was stepping into at that time said, Tom, you now know this. So it's almost like, yes, it's important to know things, try things, experience things. It's important because it helps you guide when you're going to make that decision in the front end. But so many people want to know it all before they make a decision. I'm here to invite you. You're listening to a show called Intentional Soul. So I guess I'm at liberty to say that when you deep dive into it head first, knowledge, experience, stuff like things that you didn't have will sprout. Skills and knowledge that you didn't know you had, because it will completely come out of nowhere. And you combine that with the tried stuff, with what you have done. And I will venture to say that what you've done and what you've learned has a higher benefit only as reference in the new identity. But it's what's coming through you that is the real knowledge. It is the skills that are that feel like you're a natural at this because of this magical process of fully committing to doing it. So that's what I would share to the world, brother, that don't get hung up on having to know something. When you deep dive into it, you will know more.
Beautifully said. And let's leave it there for this round, my friend. Cuthberto Ramos.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for hanging. And, hey, if somebody wants to give you feedback and take you up on that challenge, where can they follow you or reach you?
Listen, I don't know if you're going to put this up. I would say just, I don't know, man, message me on, or just email me.
You got an email?
cuthbertoramos@gmail.com.
There you go.
Simple.
How about an email?
If this is going to be on the title, Cuthberto Ramos, _cuthbertoramos@gmail. If you want any feedback,
hey, I'm just putting it out there because you're like, hey, I would
love to know.
So give me feedback
because I'm so convinced of that. I'm so convinced, bro. I'm so convinced that when you do it, it just comes up, man. And
Thank you, brother.
That's what it is, brother.
I appreciate the time, and I look forward to the next conversation. And there will 100% be a
correspondent. There will be correspondent Cuthberto. 2 minutes 20.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you later.
Brother. Take care.
All right, this has been another episode of the Intentional Soul Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to leave a 5-star review if you found this content of value. And as always, I'm your host, Tom Ross, Master Practitioner of the Advanced Rapid Enlightenment Process and Rapid Enlightenment Process developed by Matthew Ferry. You can reach me at tom@tomrosstalks.com, and the website to engage and be a part of any classes, trainings, or sessions I have going on is www.tomrosstalks.com. Until next time, peace.